Mist on the mountain's brow, whispers from long ago. Hear the song of the city calling you to the sea. The ancient kings return, a timeless fire burns. The heart of air calls beyond the waterfalls.
They've called it many things in Ireland. That wandering spark you see drifting over the bog at night. The straw light, the wandering fire, the foolish flame, the friar's candle, the jack-o'-lantern, the will-o'-the-wisp. Every parish had its own name for it, and every name carried a warning tucked inside it. The old people would tell you it wasn't a light at all, but a leading, a lure set out by the little folk, the sly ones who lived close to the ground and loved nothing better than to see a man wander where he shouldn't. Some said it was a fairy lantern carried by a small one running ahead, laughing into its sleeve. Others said it was the glow of a fairy fire marking a path you weren't meant to take. And a few, the oldest, the ones who remembered things no one else did, said it was the boundary itself, the thin place between our world and theirs, showing itself for a heartbeat. Whatever it was, the rule was always the same. If the light moves, you don't follow it. If it calls you, you don't answer. And if you do either, you'd better hope you find your way back. Pat knew all that. He'd heard it from his grandmother, who'd heard it from hers. But on the night this happened, he was walking home late from a wake, tired in the bones, and the bog was full of mist. So when he saw the little flicker drifting ahead of him, low to the ground, bobbing like someone carrying a twist of burning straw, he thought nothing of it, just a neighbor heading the same way. He followed without thinking, and the night changed around him. The ground softened under his boots. The air warmed. The stars above him seemed to shift, as if he'd stepped into a slightly different sky. He came over a low rise and stopped dead. In the hollow below, a crowd of monks were working in silence. A dozen of them, maybe more. Brown habits, bare feet, faces hidden. They lifted pale stones that glowed faintly, building something Pat couldn't name. A wall, a chapel, a cairn. It changed shape every time he blinked, as if the structure itself hadn't decided what it wanted to be. None of them looked at him. None of them even seemed aware he existed. Except one. A monk near the center paused mid-movement. Not a full stop. Just a tiny hesitation, like a man hearing a whisper no one else hears. He turned his head, and the hood slipped back enough for Pat to see the face beneath. It wasn't frightening. It wasn't ghostly. It was simply knowing. The monk's eyes fixed on Pat with a calm, ancient understanding, as if he could see not just the man, but the time he came from. As if he knew Pat didn't belong there, in that hour, in that layer of the world. The others kept working, blind to everything but their task. But this one watched Pat with a kind of sad patience, like a teacher seeing a child wander into a room they shouldn't be in. Pat felt the hairs rise on his arms, not from fear, from recognition. The monk wasn't looking at him. He was looking through him, into the years ahead. The monk raised one finger, not to beckon, not to warn, but to mark him. A gesture that said, "You've stepped into the past. You're seeing what was never meant to be seen, and you must leave before the moment closes around you." The air thickened, the hollow seemed older. The monks seemed further away, like figures in a memory that wasn't his. Pat realized then that he wasn't looking at ghosts. He wasn't looking at visions. He was looking at time itself, still alive in its own layer of the land. And only one monk had the power, or the right, to notice him looking in. He turned his coat inside out, the way his grandmother always said to do if the night felt too thin. The moment he did, the hollow vanished. The monks were gone. The strange building was gone. The bog was just a bog again, cold and wet and familiar. He found himself standing in a drain he'd nearly walked into. The straw light was nowhere to be seen, and the first grey of dawn was touching the sky. He never told the full story, just said he lost his way, but he carried the lesson with him all his life. Don't stick your nose into places it doesn't belong. There are things in this country older than us and kinder than they look, but they don't take well to being watched. And if you wander onto ground that isn't yours, it has a way of finding you again when you least expect it. And that was Pat's story, or as much of it as he ever dared to tell. A man following a light that wasn't meant for him, stepping onto ground that didn't belong to the living, and being seen, truly seen, by something older than memory. He carried that moment with him for the rest of his days, and he'd shake his head whenever someone talked about a bit of harmless curiosity, because that was the lesson he learned out there on the bog. Don't be poking your nose into places it doesn't belong. There are things in this country that don't mind being left alone, but they don't take kindly to being watched. So mind yourself. Thanks for listening, and may the road rise to meet you, unless it's the old bog road. Bye for now.
Where ancient spirits softly tread, and mossy stones hold what was said. A whispered tale upon the breeze, through haunted wells and sacred trees. The signal from the old lands calls, the Bog Signal speaks.